Hello and welcome back to FD. Today we've curated a list of football matches that never happened due to some of the strangest reasons. 10. North Korea winning the World Cup. North Korea describes itself as a self-reliant and socialist nation, but it's widely known that the regime headed by Kim Jong-un controls and censors the information that enters the state. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea have often used fake sports news as propaganda to instill nationalistic pride, like the time they projected a story that Kim Jong-un's late father completed 11 holes in one on his one and only round of golf in 1994. With the Supreme Leader being an avid Manchester United fan, it's unsurprising that football has also been caught up in this wildfire of fake news. In 2010, North Korea qualified for its second ever World Cup and were drawn in a group with Brazil, Portugal and the Ivory Coast. Playing 3 games and losing all 3, they didn't make it out of the group stage, according to the rest of the world anyway. Censorship in North Korea had meant that no one had seen any of the games, and they publicised that not only had the national team made it through the group, but according to the paintings of their greatest international sporting achievements, were world champions. That definitely didn't happen, although may happen quicker than it does for England. 9. Groningen vs Ajax. As weird as it may seem, toilet paper actually caused the abandonment of one match in the Eredivisie back in April 2008 when FC Groningen faced Ajax at home. The fans were extremely hyped up ahead of hosting the 33-time league champions in the Dutch derby of the North and decided to throw huge amounts of toilet roll all over the stadium, stands and onto the pitch ahead of the game. The stupid prank turned dangerous when a number of Groningen fans started to light the toilet roll, which obviously led to fires breaking out across the stands and on the pitch. There was so much smoke left over from this ridiculous act of hooliganism that all fans were forced to leave the stadium for safety and the game had to be abandoned. The next derby had to be rescheduled for a much later date to avoid further crowd trouble and wasn't played until the very end of the year. So the toilet paper didn't wipe the fans' arses, but it did wipe the smile off their face. 8. PAOK vs AEK Athens. From one toilet roll story to the next, in a Greek derby between first-placed Olympiakos and PAOK, the Olympiakos fans are accused of attempting to get the game abandoned when they covered the Toowoomba Stadium in loo roll and threw a roll of receipt at the manager. But the tension in the Greek Super League came to an all-time high during the game between PAOK and AEK Athens, when PAOK owner Ivan Savidis stormed on the pitch with a gun. He crossed the white line, and indeed a lot of lines, when he confronted the referee after a goal scored by his side was disallowed in the 89th minute. The game descended into chaos and was abandoned there and then. However, that wasn't the end of it. The incident led to the entirety of the Greek Football League being suspended indefinitely by Greece's Minister of Sport. 7. LA Galaxy vs Brisbane Roar. Celebrities have an abundance of fame, wealth and power. Enough in these cases to cancel entire football matches. At the beginning of 2009, Madonna was to blame for French side Marseille missing their first home game of the season. The Stade Velodrome hosted the Queen of Pop's performance 2 nights before the opening Ligue 1 game, when the stage collapsed, wrecking Marseille's pitch and forcing the game to be abandoned. Weirdly, this isn't a one-off, as David Beckham has also caused the cancellation of a game. England's free-kick wonder and global icon was playing for LA Galaxy in December 2008, when his absence from the team sheet meant an entire game was called off. Ahead of a friendly between the LA side and Brisbane Roar, Bex ruled himself out the game, reportedly to avoid injury ahead of his awaited switch to AC Milan. To avoid the disappointment of the travelling fans desperate to see the number 23, the MLS team opted to call off the whole thing rather than soldier on without their star man. A team sport indeed. 6. Sheffield vs Oldham. Hey, have you got your global football fix yet? If not, then click the eye above and go over to Football Mundial, where Team Twat are bringing you the best stories from around the world. I'm off. Going back to the 1980s, games were cancelled for all sorts of weird and wonderful reasons, but this one is nefarious. In 1985, a scheduled game between Sheffield United and Oldham was postponed due to the terrifying discovery of a World War II bomb. The game was scheduled to be held at Bramall Lane, but the bomb found underground opposite Sheffield United Stadium had to be dug up and carefully defused by a bomb squad. The dramatics forced the game to be called off and played at a later date. It isn't the first time a bomb scare has cancelled a football game. In 2008, a Serie B game between Salernitana and Frosinone was also postponed because of a World War II bomb. The 60-year-old explosive was found right outside the Stadio Arecci in Salerno and led not only to the cancellation of the game, but the evacuation of 6,000 people in the area. 5. FC Slutsk versus Shakhtar Soligorsk. With hundreds of leagues and thousands of football teams all across the world, you can be forgiven for not keeping up with all of them. You would have thought, however, that betting companies would do their best to stay in the know with at least the top flight games. But on February 3rd in 2014, a Belarusian Premier League match between FC Slutsk and Shakhtar Soligorsk ended 2-1 after 2 second-half goals sealed the win for the underdog Slutsk. This would have been a difficult loss for the once Champions League side Shakhtar to overcome. Well, it would have been if the game had actually happened. The whole match had been totally falsified as part of a much wider gambling concept to help bettors guarantee the right results. Bookies like Bet365 and SBobet were out of pocket after accepting bets on a number of ghost games across the world that never even happened, and this was one of them. 4. West Ham versus Crystal Palace. Next up, we have another betting scandal at fault for a match abandonment. On a Monday evening in November 1997, a goal from Frank Lampard had just drawn West Ham and Crystal Palace level at Upton Park when the entire stadium went into darkness. A power failure had turned all the floodlights off and forced the game to be cancelled. As fans in East London travelled home unsatisfied and frustrated, members of a betting syndicate in Malaysia celebrated a 6-figure win. They had illegally organised the lights to be switched off and bet on the game being abandoned. Not only had it worked, but they repeated the plan during an Arsenal-Wimbledon game weeks later. It wasn't until the third attempt in a game between Liverpool and Charlton that their genius plan was foiled when the bribe security guard came clean, leaving 4 men facing jail time and those games void. 3. Vitória versus Bahia. Terrible fan behaviour rendering a game useless is one thing, but in Brazil it was down to the players' own misconduct that caused a match between Vitória and Bahia to be void. In February 2018, the derby clash between the rivals ended 11 minutes from time after 10 players were given 9 red cards and received 8 yellows. Following a fiery first half that saw 6 bookings, Bahia were given a penalty in the 50th minute, and when Vinicius celebrated the equalising goal with a dance in front of the home supporters, the game descended into madness. Subsequently, a brawl broke out, and after a 16-minute delay, 8 players were sent off, 3 reds shown to Vitória players, while 5 Bahia players received their marching orders. The match somehow continued, but when Vitória had 2 further players dismissed, the match had to be abandoned. Bahia were handed a 3-0 victory for the game that was never even finished, in a match that both clubs probably wish had never happened. 2. Colwyn Bay versus Altrincham. In this list, we have a number of games left abandoned thanks to hooliganism, player misconduct, owner interference, but never at the hands of the guy in charge. However, during an FA Cup clash between North Conference sides Colwyn Bay and Altrincham, the referee was forced to abandon a game when he himself became injured. 83 minutes into the game that was being dominated by Colwyn Bay, the referee was too injured to go on, but the winning side rejected the replacement ref, claiming that he'd been drinking. Ex-Chelsea defender Frank Sinclair, who was player manager of the Welsh club at the time, chose to pretend the game had never happened, saying you can't just have any Tom, Dick or Harry come in and finish the last 10 minutes of the game. 1. Togo versus Bahrain. In September 2010, Bahrain beat a particularly poor Togo team 3-0 in an international friendly. Bahrain, who at the time were ranked 75th in the world, managed to get the ball in the back of the net 8 times in total, with 5 goals very dubiously ruled out for offside. The Togolese performance was so woeful that the Bahrain coach questioned their fitness, called the game boring and a complete waste of time. And he wasn't wrong. It turns out the players were total frauds. While the fixture was apparently organised under official procedures, the players who showed up were a totally different squad. And Togo's sports minister admitted that nobody from the Togolese Football Federation had been informed of the game going ahead. So who knows who Bahrain played in a friendly 8 years ago, but it definitely wasn't Togo. Well done! You've finished the video. For some more great content, click right here, you dirty dogs, and as ever, don't forget to like and subscribe. I mean it.